Welcome to the revolution. Why is this happening in the US? Right? Why is this happening in the United States more than any other country, right? Is it the access to guns? Because that's, it's a contributing factor, according to these people. Why does the US have a higher percentage of these mass shootings compared to other countries? Why? And I think that's an interesting question. And I think it's an important question. I think it's something that we have to deal with head on. And I think it's something that we have to take an educated, non-emotional approach to answering. And so here's my thought on that. Okay. So I believe when things, so there's a good example I have this that will kind of drive this point home for you. But so when it's something is in the human consciousness, the Jungian theory of the greater consciousness, of the consciousness of humanity, that's all intertwined. If you don't know anything about that theory, you should go look it up. But basically the idea is that there's a collective unconscious is the actual term for it. Okay. Now, when something is happening in the universe, in the ether, when something's happening in the ether, it goes across the consciousness of all the individuals who are intertwined with that individual. Okay. So in this particular situation, it is a part of the United States of America's human collective unconscious that these shootings have been happening for a while now. Now, I posted a statistic today, and what I said was, on this day, CNN was founded 42 years ago. Since that date that CNN was founded 42 years ago, school shootings have increased by 100% per decade for the last 4 decades. So, under the logic of the gun argument, it would make just as much sense that we, ban CNN as it is to ban weapons. There's a correlation. And if you look deep enough into anything, you can always find some way to connect the strings. And that's what we see our politicians doing here is they find a string, they pull on it. It's something that they've wanted to do all along, and they're utilizing this as a platform to do so. Okay? So if you look deep enough into any one of these, any specific piece of data, usually you can find some way to play mental gymnastics and find that to be the root cause. So in this individual case, I think the reason that we have a higher percentage of these shootings in the United States is because of that collective unconscious. The same way that, and it gets romanticized in these terrible, really deeply distraught communities of the deep, dark corners of shadows of the internet. I would see it easily being romanticized, people watching the Columbine shootings and all sorts of terrible things. Now, the analogy that I'm speaking on that I think speaks to this the most is that there was a book that was written surrounding the difference in manifestations of mental health issues. And so what this book kind of outlined was the trans movement having something to do with a new manifestation of the same mental illnesses, because what it correlated, and again, I'll say it, I just talked about it. You can correlate a lot of things. But what this book outlined for you is how the percentage of young individuals who were having mental illnesses that were presenting themselves in the way of bulimia and anorexia had that same amount that went away, like the same statistical amount that did no longer identify as having bulimia or anorexia or had these, actually psychological evaluations to do so. The same percentage that were normally presenting their mental health issues as anorexia and bulimia, we're now presenting them in this, transgender, gender dysphoria, whatever this book wanted to outline it as. Okay. So my point with that is it's a manifestation. It's the, the collective unconscious way for a manifestation of these mental health issues. Okay. So that's just, that is a piece of the puzzle. I'm not saying that's why it happens most often in the United States. I do think that there's a conversation to be had surrounding weapons, right? Surrounding, the amount of weapons that we have. However, there's definitely contradicting data points. Like I believe it's Iceland that's far more armed than we are. It has far more guns per individual, per 1,000, and has far less gun crimes. Okay, so there's contradicting evidence for that. But I do think that there's absolutely something to that collective unconscious, and I do believe that with it being such a hot topic in the United States, it's always deemed to repeat itself, because now the sick individuals who have the most rotted mental state now know the way that they can get the most attention out of their anguish, and how they get their name on every news station. And it's gross and it's sick and it's horrible, but it's a manifestation of those mental health issues. And the mental health issues that, some politicians even went as far as to say is he has no mental health issues. Really? He has no mental health issues? Because there's no way that you're able to do this horrific act unless you have some type of horrific mental health issue.